Hello, everybody. My name is Fernando Diaz Gestal, and I'm here today to talk about my experience bootstrapping product teams. First of all, I would like to introduce myself a bit. I work as product director in the technology department at a company called King. You probably know some of our games like Candy Crush or Farm Hero Saga or Bubble Witch Saga. My background is in computer science. I've been playing different kind of roles in the field of technology, but recently, much more than recently, in the last 12 years, I've been focused on product management, mainly in two sectors. First one is e-learning, and second one is gaming. And you can check my profile clicking on the LinkedIn link that you can see in the slides. But today I want to talk to you about the feeling of going nowhere. I don't know if you have experienced this. If not, maybe you are lucky enough to not to experience it. But personally, I've been experienced this several times with different teams. And usually, this feeling of going nowhere comes when you arrive into a team that has not been able to launch something valuable for some time, or maybe you are starting a new product with a new team, or maybe your product team is not performing, meaning they are not delivering the outcome that is expected from them. So probably some of you are nodding already, and you can feel identified in any of these scenarios. As I said, if not, I will say it is very likely that at some point you will face a situation like that. So usually this situation happens when the team is still in previous stages, meaning that they are either forming as a team, or they are storming, or they are starting to norm, but they are still not there. So this is not something that I have invented. Of course, that's something that probably you already know. It comes from Tuckman. In 1965, he wrote a book where he was explaining these different phases for groups, where they usually go from one angle to the other when they are successful. Not all of them are able to achieve the performing state. So, as I said, like, when you are facing any of these three scenarios that I call feeling of going nowhere, it's very likely that you are still in the forming and storming state with your teams, either because you are the new guy or because there are new things coming to the mix. So an effective team, when you think about a team which is in this performing state, usually it's characterized because it's a group of individuals that have a common understanding of three things. The first one is around people. They know each other. They have a common understanding and common expectations around each other. Second thing is that they know how to work together. They know their processes. They have been agreeing on them, and they are crystal clear for any of the team members. And third thing, which, I mean, it's probably the one that I used to focus more, is around the product. And with product, I mean that there is a clear purpose for them as a team, and they have also a clear understanding on what the product needs to be. What's the vision for the product that they are trying to build? So again, that's not something that I have come out of the blue. That's something that you can find in a lot of different places, this kind of definition as an effective team. But I really like the one from Brendan Marsh, which is, it was an agile coach in Spotify. He has been working in product as well, and he has a very interesting blog that I'm linking also in the bottom of the page that you can read and get to know more. And I really like how he has described this part. So yeah, I mean, if you have a high-performing team or even a normal performing team, it's very likely that you have achieved this common understanding on these three things. But as I said, it's not always the case. So when I think on high-performing teams, this picture always comes to my mind. This is, for me, a very good metaphor. You have all the team working together on the same direction with the same pace. I mean, everything is fluid, right? And as I said, achieving this state, it takes some time. And that's what my friend Ramon Ferrer, that you can see in the picture with me after, like coming out with an interesting idea that I'm going to explain you later. We came to the conclusion that we can help teams actually to go from this forming state to this performing state. And we've been thinking quite a lot about, okay, what can we do to try to speed up this process as much as possible so that we can remove this feeling of nowhere and we can actually start doing something valuable with our teams. So after all of this thinking and so on, suddenly we achieve this outcome, which was a kind of an agenda for what we call our workshop, bootstrapping a product team workshop. I'm going to show you a better explanation of it. This is what we got, right? So we thought that we could speed up the teams on this transition from forming to storming by running a one-day workshop where we could cover these three areas. And this is the kind of the schema that we defined. We thought that we should start like making the people to know each other, having a first contact and icebreaker. After that, we go directly to, okay, let's fix the purpose and the vision for the team. And in the afternoon, it's a nice moment to also, once we have aligned on terms of outcome and on terms of purpose and on terms of vision, that we can also start working out how do we want the team to receive the work and how do we want the team to deliver work. And last but not least, we also thought that it would be nice to close this workshop with a team building exercise. So with this day, we will be doing a trip where it will enable the team to transition very, very good from forming to, or at least to help the team transition as fast as possible from forming to storming. And today, I'm going to be talking to you around the product part, which is, I think, the one that you could get more interest into. How we can align a team around a purpose and a vision. And for doing this, again, what we did is to think and to research a bit what it was available in the community around doing these kind of things. And I've been in the past using this with some teams in isolation, but I never used it as as a part of a wider workshop. And I'm referring now to these 10 questions, which are part of what is being called the Agile Inception Deck. That it's been published by the Agile Warrior blog that you can check link here, and there is even also an Udemy course that it helps you to fill it. But what I tried to do differently, or we tried, Ramon and I, to do differently this time, is not to fill it on our own, not to fill it on our side and then try to convince the team and align it towards it. So what we did is to actually go through these 10 questions together with the team into this workshop. And what we learned in a couple of iterations is that actually we don't need to go through the 10 questions, that actually these 6 ones are the most important ones to answer as a team, because usually are the ones which creates more confusion, and that each of the people in the team usually have different views on these things. So with different iterations, we came to the conclusions that answering these 6 questions will be the most important thing to do in this workshop. So let me go through each of these questions so that you can also get an understanding on what it means. So the first one is, why are we here? With why are we here, we are trying to, as a team, to agree on what is the reason that makes the company or that makes the organization to create a team around this purpose. And it's important to think about this from the, let's say, management perspective. What makes management, what makes the company to decide that there needs to be a team for doing something. And this is super important to get it right from the beginning, because it will enable the team in the future to take balanced trade-offs. As usual, at least this is how I like to work. It's not me making all the decisions, it's me giving tools and giving information and context for any team member to be able to make decisions. And that's a key part of it. Once you are able to define this, the next question that we work together with the team is, okay, so what is our product? And for this part, we always want to use an elevator pitch as a mechanism to try to define it. And I'm not going to tell you here how to create an elevator pitch, but I mean, I can give you a good hint, which is using this schema you can see in the right part of the screen is very helpful, where you can very clearly define who are you targeting with your product, what then is the need problem that you are trying to solve, what's the product, that the name of that you want to give to your product, what problem solves, and how is solving this problem differently than the alternatives that they might exist. So using this schema is also very helpful for even the team to be able to get to a conclusion and to get alignment around what's your product. Third question is, what do our customers expect from it? And that's really important, because probably it's the first time that the people in the team try to think about the product from the customer perspective. And in this question, our ambition is to be able to define what we call the product box, which is if a product will be in a supermarket, what will be the characteristics that we would like to highlight about them so that the customers can be attracted by it. And again, that's also, at least in my experience, a very good exercise with the team, because you are forcing them to look to your product from the customer perspective, not from the technical one, which is usually what it should happen. So the fourth question is around what's not our product, and that's, again, as any other of the questions, a really important topic, because it's the kind of the route for you to also set up expectations and to make people also to not to get the right impressions or to get the wrong fears. And here what we do is to create a not list. We create a list where we ask people to start thinking on what we should not be doing, what should not be part of what we are trying to achieve here. And again, here it's super useful. It's a super useful artifact to start sharing with the stakeholders and the users, so that you can start getting feedback right after this workshop around if there is anything that we are considering that should not be doing that we should. So it's super cheap artifact. It's super powerful. The fifth question is, who are our neighborhoods? And it's important also to take this into account, because usually, and again, that's what I have experienced so far, the team start thinking about what they can do in isolation. But usually, when you are in a wider organization, it's super important to take into account what are the others that you need to rely on, or that you need to engage with, or that you need to at least create a relationship with that. So it's important for the team to realize that they need to think outside the team, and they need to start identifying these teams that they need to have very close and start creating the connections and the relationship with them. That's usually also a source of action items that you are start actioning right after this workshop. And this artifact, which is the Inception deck, is again a very nice artifact that you can also use as a material to share to these other teams in advance, so that you can have a relationship based on that, where they can see what's your product, what you are trying to solve, what's your purpose, what you are not trying to solve. So again, it's the fact of creating the artifact plus the fact that you are getting an artifact out of it are both things are super valuable for the team. And last question is, okay, what keeps us up at night? What are our fears? What are we thinking it could make us to suffer? And here is creating the typical risk matrix with probability and impact with your team. And it's a very good question to make, so that you can start understanding what are the different fears coming from the different team members. Because again, like, not everybody is the same, and at least we tried always to have diverse teams, which bring us these different perspectives. And this exercise is also very, very good to get different perspectives of the risk that we could have up front. So again, here the answer in these questions will help you to create this first risk assessment list and start thinking around what will be the strategies to deal with the risk, and start defining actions for it. So yeah, this is basically what I wanted to share with you about how we bootstrap product teams. But now that we are living in this new world where remote teams are spread all over the world with this coronavirus stuff, I wanted also to share with you how we are doing now that we have all our teams in remote. And what we are doing, it's kind of following the same methodology that I was explaining you, following the same bootstrap product teams workshop, but we are doing it with some tweaks that I want to share with you. So no problemo for doing this in remote. What are the tweaks that we are doing? The first one is, instead of trying to create this as a big workshop with all the teams in a physical location, that's something unfortunately not feasible. What we are doing is to run this deck individually with each team member in isolation. So doing that, it's, of course, you need to invest much more time, but it also helps you to create this relationship with your team members. For example, when you are when you will be working with a new team, or when you have new team members being added to the team that you have been working for some time. And running this deck with them, whenever you have run with some of the team members, you start to see where the misalignments are. So it's also a way to diagnose the misalignment. And then you have two options. Depending on how big the misalignments are, you can either create focus groups with the people which you can classify on different opinions around these questions. Or what I'm trying to do at the moment is start coaching the team members from the early beginning. Whenever I see a misalignment, compared with other team members and me, after talking, of course, with the customers and understanding a bit the wider context, what I'm trying to do is to coach the team members so that they can reach to the same point where I am, or even the other way around. I could change my opinion based on the team member feedback. So here I'm starting to work the misalignments already individually. And at the end, either through the focus groups or through individual work or through both things together, what we do at the end is to run the workshop remotely, but a shorter version. Usually it's not a one-day version. It's like one morning version where we have been working, as we have been working this out individually with each of the team members. It's much easier to go ahead and do all the other stuff. Yeah, you might be asking yourself, okay, how did you do the team building exercise? So what we have tried out is to play games together, online games, and it has been kind of the best alternative for doing a team building exercise that we have found so far. So yeah, I mean, my experience tells me that it's feasible to do this with remote teams. Of course, I'm not going to tell you that this is the same thing, because you cannot get as much impact as you can get doing it physically, but at least it serves you to remove this feeling of going nowhere. So imagine that you are in this situation, that you either reach a team that is going nowhere somehow, or that you are starting a new product or starting with a new team, or you see that your team is not working. So you run this workshop with them, either the physical version or the online version. And then what's next? So what we used to do in our teams as a next step is to usually go with a user story mapping. So what we do is, I usually, with my product managers, we are preparing a backlog of things that we think that we should be doing, and here we create with the team a user story mapping. I'm not going to enter into details on what a user story mapping is and how to create it. If you are not familiar with this, I strongly suggest you to get a copy of this book from Jeff Patton that explains very nicely how to do these things. But in a nutshell, a user story mapping is a representation of a narrative flow from your product, where you identify the different actors, different what's called user types, and you identify the different steps for your product to solve a problem. And you are basically putting the stories on this narrative flow so that you can explain the whole story about how you are going to be able to deliver value to your users through the flow. So here, as just a recap of the main benefits that you can get out of using a user story mapping with the team is, again, you make the whole team to think from the user perspective, because they are visualizing things as they were users. You can align the team around the problems that they want to solve, that you want to solve first, and explain them the why. Usually in the user story map, you create kind of iterations of releases that are the ambition is to solve specific chunks of problems. And probably one of the biggest benefits of the user story mapping is the fact of visualizing the big picture of your whole product in one board. And usually it's a very good artifact to define your first MVP as for your product whenever you are launching a big product, or even when you have a product which has been already live and is going nowhere, to restate what should be the value that you are expecting to deliver to your users. So yeah, that was it. I hope that I have not been talking so fast. I know that usually I'm like a machine gun shooting words from my mouth. It has been great to have the chance to share my learnings with you and my experience. I'm really looking forward to get your feedback, and I hope this will serve you to create better products with your teams and to be a better product manager. So having said that, have a nice day and looking forward to hear from you soon. Thank you.